Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the St. Peter's School Board. It is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. We are in the governor's room. It is 5:03 p.m. and we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to consider and adopt the agenda, which is found in the board book packet online and in front of you.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. Kimberly, do we have any requests to speak? All right. Next up is the approval of consent agenda items. These items are found in the board book packet online and in front of you. I'd be happy to discuss any of the items to pull them out and acknowledge them, or would accept a motion to approve. Or both, I guess.
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
And I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just looking back at the minutes from the previous meeting back on May 21st, when Ethan, our buddy and meteorologist, was here, I wanted to call him tonight to find out if I needed an umbrella, a coat,
I know.
shovel, but I didn't.
Or a safe room.
There you
Yeah.
go, exactly.
I have actually thought about him multiple times in the last week.
I
Every
have
time
as
there's
well.
it's
Exactly.
like, I wonder what Ethan's thinking. Does he agree with Ian Leonard on Fox 9?
Yeah, right.
Any other discussion?
I will say, I looked at the bills and everything appeared to be in order. There was one slip up in the credit cards, but they caught it, so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. All right, discussion. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Same sign. Excuse me. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. We do not have a student spotlight or student council report tonight, correct?
Correct.
All right, we will move into action items. First item up, consider acceptance of gifts and donations.
There are 3 donations that are listed in your packet. A $2,428.94 donation from the St. Peter Booster Club was received to reimburse the St. Peter Public Schools for purchases the district made on behalf of the Booster Club. Second, a donation in the amount of $800 was received from the Osceola Council number 30 degree of Pocahontas, directed to the Cheer Student Activity Account. This is to help pay for the Cheer Summer Camp. And third, a donation totaling $1,239 from a variety of businesses in St. Peter were given to the Choir Student Activity Account. These funds were acquired during the Pops concert in May at a silent auction. I would recommend your acceptance of these 3 donations as presented.
Also move,
We have a motion and a second.
Charlie.
Any discussion? Yeah.
I have a question, just kind of a curiosity. Do we have a new cheerleader advisor?
Mrs. Engeldinger, I'm not sure.
Not yet, no. There are several interested.
So will we have one before these camps occur?
There'll be somebody in,
We still have some of the old ones too.
Okay.
the assistant cheer advisors.
Assistants.
Okay,
I don't believe that it has been, so.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Just a clarification, if I may, Mr. Chair. Under the donations from the various businesses, I'm assuming that's a sizable number of maybe some fairly small amounts, so it's difficult to acknowledge them individually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there were, I would say, at least 40 or more items at that silent auction.
Sure, okay. And we certainly appreciate it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good clarification. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Discussion, discussion, discussion. Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have accepted these gifts and donations. Thank you to the generosity of those who gave. Next up, consider approval of preliminary 2025-2026 budget. Ms. Gracia.
Always fun
Hi.
stuff. There are 4 documents attached in board book related to the 26 preliminary budget. The first one I'm going to review is the detailed budget. It looks like this. The number of columns, it's 2 pages long. If you recall, the very first page is the general fund as a whole. It's broken up into sections. We spend the most of our time talking about that top section, which is the unassigned, but just a reminder, this whole first page is general fund. The very left column is where we anticipate we're going to start fiscal year 26. It ties out to the budget that you approved this spring for fiscal year 25. So where we thought we were going to end 25 is obviously where we start 26. We have our moving to the right revenues coming in, expenditures going out, any adjustments in or out, manual transfers, and then our ending fund balances sort of to the right-hand side. That very right column then is changes either going up or down both in dollars and percents. So that's just the structure of this, similar as it's been before. The top section, the unassigned general fund, we're estimating we're starting at $5.5 million with $28 million in revenue, 28.1 in expenditures, net transfer of $100,000 out of the unassigned general fund, ending with a fund balance of $5.38 million. If you move down to the bottom of this first page, that equates into 69.9 days of operating expenses for that unassigned general fund balance.
Again, would you just take a minute to review the adjustment, and if the adjustment had not been made, what approximately that would have done to our unassigned fund balance?
Sure. So the manual adjustment is composed of 2 different things. So first, it's $200,000 coming from the assigned general fund, which is down below VEBA severance. So we have $200,000 coming in. We have $300,000 going to community ed fund for both for the annual contribution that we're going to be making and then that long-term plan. So if we didn't make those 2 transfers, then we would have $100,000 more. Our fund balance would be slightly higher. But as a net of those 2, our fund balance is $100,000 less than it could be if we didn't make those transfers. The middle section then is the restricted funds. So those are things that by statute or by application, we have to spend them on certain expenditures. We utilize those to the best of our abilities. There are 2 different sets of funds, both MA revenue and some of our READ Act dollars that we anticipate spending down a little bit further. But other than that, we try and utilize everything that we can in those areas. And then the bottom section are the assigned funds. So things that we set aside for specific purposes as a district, we deem that we want to have those balances in there. Again, that's where, like Dr. Olson pointed out, that's where we're going to take some of that money from the severance and VEBA as a one-time transfer into the unassigned fund. So general fund as a whole, we're starting the year with just over $8 million and ending the year at just under $7.6 million. Any questions on this first page? Perfect. The second page then looks at everything outside of the general fund. So food service, we are estimating a decrease in the food service fund. We do have to spend down some of those dollars. We still, at this point, are, based on the budget, we are still going to have a fund balance that is too high. There was a grace period for a number of years with COVID and with the Minnesota paid meals. They were allowing us to carry 6 months worth of expenditures in our cash. Now they're going back to 3 months in this year. So even with this fund balance, we are going to have to find strategic ways with Dr. Graff, with the principals, with our food service director to find one-time expenditures that we can decrease this balance even a little bit further to make sure that we fall within that 3-month balance. Community service, as you can see, we have $300,000 transferring in because our revenues and expenditures were aligning with where we anticipated they were going to. So we are slowly going to chip away at that community service fund balance. We anticipate we're going to end with just under negative $800,000 there. So again, trying to do the annual transfer to net zero out that given year and then slowly work on that nine-year plan that we had. The building construction fund is for the middle school. So that is activity for interest coming in on our accounts, and then any outgoing expenditures for July, August, and next to June on the middle school project. So that's what they have planned as of right now, with an ending fund balance of just under 20 million. Debt redemption is based on our bond payments. So you will see that there's a negative number there. It's all related to timing, when we have to make our bond payments versus when we get our levy revenue for those corresponding bond payments. So nothing that we need to be concerned about there. The trust fund, it's 2 of our scholarships that are held in a trust fund, so we don't anticipate activity more than just ins and outs of those scholarships. And the last one then is the insurance fund. So again, we're self-insured with health and dental. We have had a very high claims year this last year. So that's something that with our insurance representative, we're going to have to continue to monitor because we are utilizing a substantial amount of our fund balance there in the health insurance fund. We did establish a 9% increase for our health insurance premiums going into this coming year based on his recommendations. But we are just going to have to continue to monitor that to ensure that we have a healthy amount in that fund balance there. Any questions on this second page?
You can't use the food service budget for concessions?
You cannot, unfortunately.
Going more on that food service budget, so are there like, that can be used for like, obviously equipment or upgrades or things to the kitchen, I'm guessing? I mean, like what kind of, how creative or what are we doing in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, it can be kitchen stoves, kitchen heaters. Something new that they just added this past year was tables for the cafeteria. That used to be an unallowable expense, which now you can use it.
Okay.
I know 2 of our buildings have received a couple tables, but that's an area that we could look at. But we did really want to make sure that it's just one-time purchases because we
Yeah.
want to, while we have this money available, we don't want it to have tails and have future years get us a negative food service fund balance. One of the only other pieces I saw as part of the legislative process is that we could potentially use it to help supplement some of our, or offset some of our administrative costs, which we can't currently do. So we could look at that. I haven't seen a lot of guidance from MDE on what that entails, but that could be an avenue that we go down. So.
Well, and I know we don't want to just like buy things for the sake of buying, but I was just kind of wondering if we were doing like any strategic thinking or a process to determine what to do with that.
There have been conversations at the building principal table and with the full administrative team. I think we need to wait till we get just a little more guidance because they shifted some things, made things more flexible with the legislation that was just passed.
Okay.
But we don't have all of the details on the fine print behind the legislation that was just passed yet. So
Okay.
there'll be ongoing discussions with the team in July and early August.
And then my other question is, the community service, and I'm not picking on those because that's like a very important fund. But with the community education, with the revenue expenses, which that's my favorite fund, by the way. I know that the revenue has exceeded the expense. Was that just after COVID where it started to flop around? And do we know, like, at what point we're gonna hopefully see that be able to, like, equal? Or has it always been one that we've had to supplement?
It was one that we've always supplemented,
Okay.
but we didn't supplement it for a number of years, and that's what created the larger
Okay.
deficit.
Well, and I know that, like, the studies show that, like, the more connected and seniors and the whole thing, I was just
Yep.
curious about that,
Yep.
so. My favorite fund, so.
Good to move on?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, perfect. The second document you have is just a summary of that same information, so I'm not going to review that. It's just the numbers summed up. There should be a third document then that is the 3-year rollout. So it looks like this one. That very first page, just as a reminder, the left-hand side is a 3-year rollout if we were to do nothing. So 26 is the very top number. fiscal year 29, which is 28-29 school year, is the bottom. So at this point, if everything stays the same and our assumptions are accurate, in fiscal year 29, we'd be looking at a fund balance of 1.8 million or 21.3 days. That middle section then is where we do any of our adjustments, any of our planning. So if you recall from the 3-year rollouts that we've talked about this year, we're looking at this point, budget adjustments of $200,000 in fiscal year 27, so 26, 27, and then you'll see the $300,000 each year in a transfer out of the unassigned general fund, again, going to community ed for that 2-part process. At this point, as of right now, those are the only adjustments that we have on this 3-year rollout. Then you'll see to the right what that does to our fund balance in terms of dollars and days. So you'll see that the fund balance, if we were to go with this plan, is down to 1.5 million or 17.9 days. One thing to keep in mind is that, this current year we ended up with 60 students more than what we anticipated. Who knows what the legislative process is going to do. So as we get into the fall and as we do our quarterly fund balance trackers, we'll continue to analyze this. That number might go up, it might go down, but this is as of this point with the preliminary budget that we have, that is what our 3-year rollout is looking like. I will add that the legislative pieces are not in here. We do know that we have impacts both up and down, but we didn't have solid numbers going into the preliminary budget. So that'll be part of the quarterly fund balance tracker that we bring to you in the fall once we know compensatory and student support personnel and have some of those numbers figured out.
Megan, 2 things. The first one is a good question asked at the business committee, and that is, why if we have adjustments made, do our number of estimated days of operation decrease more after we make our adjustments than before? So,
and then that's a great question. So the only year that we have money coming or adjustment coming in is in fiscal 27, where we would either have additional revenue or then cut expenditures. Otherwise, you'll notice that in those 3 years, all of those are transfers going out of the general fund to community service. So that's why then we have less dollars in the general fund, so then our number of days go down and our balance goes down.
and we talked at the business committee about levers, and there are basically 4 levers that you have available to you. You can increase the budget adjustment for fiscal year 27 above 200,000. You can increase, as a second lever, the budget adjustment from 0 for fiscal year 28. A third option would be to put a halt to the payback plan for the community service fund. And a fourth option would be to consider an operating levy. So there are levers that you should be looking at and considering as your planning continues over the next months.
All of the attached pages to this are just the numbers in the background for what goes into that left-hand column. So whether it's unemployment going out or additional expenditures, the impact of our pupil units going down, those are the attached pages that make up that left-hand column. So I'm not going to go over it in detail unless there's any specific questions. Otherwise,
Mr. Chair, I just have, I don't know, I guess a question concerning our calendar. Budget calendar. When we look at our quarterly tracker, at what point do we make adjustments to the budget if the tracker, how far off do we have to be? We have an expectation where we'll be at the end of the first quarter. If we're way off on that, do we then make adjustments?
We typically would make one primary adjustment a year, which is a revised budget, which would typically be in April, and that would reflect most of the activity that would have occurred in quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3. Because trying to make that multiple times, again, too many variables. But that usually gives you a pretty good, accurate starting point. And as Megan and John and I have talked about, it rolls right into your preliminary budget then as well. So it's a pretty accurate revised budget by that point. We're tracking the 3-year rollout more often, but
Well, it's still a great tool, because if we're off, we can start making,
Right.
you know, we can take a look at expenditures a little more critically. We can
Mhm.
put a halt to the transfer if we need to, those types of things.
Right.
The only last thing I have is there's a page for enrollment. So one thing to note, it's the very fourth document that you have. You'll note that over the last 3 years, so our 25 number is not completely solid, but it's as of the latest Mars report that we have, which is close to end of year data. But you'll notice that we've had some pretty stable enrollment compared to what we anticipated over these last couple of years, based on the grade progression ratio model that MDE has us, or recommends that we utilize. And we are still anticipating, like I said, 16 weighted pupil units in 26, 32 in 27, and 30 in 28 in terms of declining enrollment. We do have those large graduating senior classes, the smaller incoming classes, but then as you get to 29 and outwards, it's going to start to taper off a little bit as some of those larger outgoing classes start to dwindle down in size. So the end of declining enrollment is hopefully in sight. Hopefully we have another year like this year where we had 60 to 70 kids that we didn't anticipate. We can't bank on that, but we feel, I mean, we're using the methods that MDE has recommended, and so that's the enrollment that we're estimating as of right now.
Semi-conservative.
Have we compared this to that demographic study that we did?
So they actually estimated that we were going to be further below where we are.
Okay. I was just curious. I mean, that's only a guess too.
For sure. It's an informed guess,
Yeah.
but it's good that we're on the right side of that.
How far off are they when we can get our money back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you know, demographic studies generally are very accurate for 3 to 5 years out because they've got live birth numbers.
Yeah,
They
you
have
can't
the
really-
capture rate. They have all of those kinds of things. But you get past that,
you can't really predict.
no.
I mean, can't predict what's not there.
I don't have anything to base this on, like real numbers, but other than just gut check and sense. But regardless of the increasing cost of like building materials and the increases of interest rates, it feels like the activity of building housing here has increased
Yeah,
dramatically.
And I think the plans are for that to be and continue right now.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. We've been kind of
Drew, you're exactly right.
Hoping for that.
Significant increase in housing. What we need is housing that has kids,
yes.
preferably between ages 5 and 18.
Sure.
Things like the transfer curriculum and so on, I think those are gonna help too, so.
Right.
A good community service, community ed, and those things help those younger families
Yes, they
to.
do.
See how I did that, ET? I worked that right in there.
I like that.
But it is true.
Any other questions for Megan?
I do have a question too, but I want a motion first to get it on the floor for the approval. I will move the approval of the projected budget for the next fiscal year.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
And I do have a couple thoughts, if I may. First of all, on the first page that Megan referred to, where the general fund unassigned goes from 5,530,000 down to 5,382,000, a 3% decrease. That's, I think, really a successful year relative to what we thought we'd be looking at back in December, January, that kind of thing. And my compliments to Dr. Olson, Megan, the business office, and the administration in putting together some very creative rearrangements, highly resourceful, if I may use a pun, of resources. You can delete that if you want to, Tony. Again, I'm very impressed with that, and that's pretty much a stable year. And the next year, given what we know at this point, appears to be relatively similar to that. So keep, like Drew was saying, those houses going up, people moving in, and hopefully the fiscal cliff we've been concerned about, as have many other districts, will become a nice level prairie.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've approved the preliminary 2025-2026 budget. Thank you, Megan. Next up, consider approval of individual employment agreements. Dr. Olson.
You have in your packet and in the board book, the actual agreements. There are 19 individual employment agreements. Those need to be completed prior to June 30th because those agreements end on June 30th and they are not part of continuing contract or agreement regulations or laws. All 19 of the agreements are within the salary benefit parameters set by the board of 3% total compensation, 0.02 here and there, up or down, but in general at that 3% range. The agreements also include changing the dates, ensuring that a statement is in each of the agreements that the school board shall determine the terms and conditions of employment for the position of blank, because these are all at-will employment agreements. A third point is eliminating serious illness or death and bereavement leave and replace it with earned safe and sick time language. So earned safe and sick time applies and gives the same, in fact, broader flexibility in leave options than does serious illness or bereavement leave. The fourth is, where applicable, not in all agreements, single health and hospitalization at the VEBA level. And then the fifth is consistent retirement benefits for like positions. So like positions may be within the business office. Some of the agreements had $45 a day for unused sick leave at retirement, some had $50. So this increased that to $50 a day. There were some places that had life insurance for 7 years or 8 years or 9 years at retirement, so we made that language consistent. Some of the agreements had eligible for retirement benefits at age 55 after 10 consecutive years of service, some at age 56, so we moved those all to age 56. And that pretty much includes everything that we've talked about. We have met individually with all of the 19 positions that are listed, and I would recommend your approval, and I believe you could do that with a single motion, or if you chose to do 19 separate motions.
I was just thinking, please tell me we don't have to do motions.
And these,
I'll move the approval of the 19 individual agreements.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We've approved all 19 individual employment agreements. Thank you very much. Number 4, consider approval of membership in the Minnesota State High School League. This is an annual thing and it requires a resolution.
yes, just as a note, probably the biggest change, and you've been made aware of this over time, is that the Minnesota State High School League, at their June board meeting with input from all member districts, has included 9th grade under their governance model. So now all of the Minnesota State High School League rules apply to 9th grade, but in addition to that, the catastrophic insurance coverage also now applies to 9th grade. Again, all high schools that have interscholastic activities, including speech, athletics, music, drama, etc., belong to the Minnesota State High School League, and they provide rules of governance for those activities and tournament competitions. So I would recommend that you pass a resolution authorizing membership with the Minnesota State High School League.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. So it's all activities that the high school league sponsors?
Correct.
Or, so for instance, how does trap shooting fit into this?
Trap shooting is a sort of I'm trying to think of the right word, semi-connected activity to the Minnesota State High School League, because I think the Minnesota State High School League, Annette, you'd have to help me, I think they help participate in running the state trap shooting competition, but the activity itself kind of runs as an independent activity in all schools, much like fishing club and et cetera.
So the reason I asked the question is, does the liability insurance or the catastrophic insurance apply to this or the participants?
I can't answer that
Seeing
question.
as we're
We'd have to
using
do some research behind it.
Guns and so
I would, my uneducated answer, gut level answer would be no. But I think that'd be one we'd want to research.
That would be my gut, if it's not a
Right,
state high school league sanctioned.
that's my concern, and whether or not then we should have a rider or something on the school's insurance that covers that activity.
The statewide activity may have that kind of a rider.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we would have a rider on our property and casualty as well.
But I appreciate,
Because it's school sponsored, it's just
Mhm.
not high
Yeah.
school league, yeah.
Yeah, we'll research that one.
thank you.
Good question.
I get these strange things just pop.
It's good.
Mr. Chair, just an observation for people that may not be cognizant of the scope of the State High School League. In the fine print, it talks about there are over 50 activities between fine arts, athletic, et cetera. Tremendous opportunity for student participants.
Does St. Peter have like 30 of them, or? I mean, honestly.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion.
Just as a resolution.
Yeah. Yep, and this is a resolution, so we need to go around the table. Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Dixon?
Aye.
Ms. Martin?
Aye.
Motion, or resolution carries. Thank you. Item number 5, consider approval of membership in the Minnesota School Boards Association for 2025-2026.
Again, this is an annual process of your agreeing to membership with the Minnesota State, or with the Minnesota School Boards Association, excuse me. MSBA, as you well know, provides policy updates, advice to superintendents and school board members, a variety of in-service training for board members, the board book that we use, financial services, including operating the Minnesota School District Liquid Asset Fund, MISDLAF, and lobbying efforts on behalf of member schools. I think at one point there was maybe a K-8 district that did not belong to the Minnesota School Boards Association. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but virtually everybody belongs to that. The cost for membership for 2025-2026 is at $10,849. I would recommend that you approve our membership in the Minnesota School Boards Association.
I would move that we continue our membership in the MSBA.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
I would just indicate that it is a cost, but I think it's an investment.
Yeah, it pays its dividends every year.
Oh, yeah.
Every year.
Money well spent.
I mean, just in terms of everything that you've talked about, but in terms of the in-service activities, remember that the leadership conference in January is tuition-free. There's not a charge for that, so that's quite an activity as far as school board member in-service development. And I think the other one is the policy services. That's been invaluable for us.
That's huge.
I'm surprised it's so cheap.
Don't say that.
I thought it was just really, no,
Exactly the right cost.
exactly the right cost.
Also being in town, there's potential for more WADMs or students.
Yeah.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, consider a resolution to approve the yearly governmental lease. Megan is back.
This will be a quick one. Every year we do an RFP with our local banks for a lease for, in the recent history, it's been for technology. It doesn't have to be, but that's what we've been using it on the last number of years. We have both a 4-year lease and a 5-year lease. 4-year lease is for student technology, 5-year is for staff and other technology. We had some Chromebooks, iPads, desktops, some interactive TVs that were included in this lease. The 3 banks that we had reached out to all responded. The lowest bid came back with Hometown Bank, and so it is our recommendation that you would authorize that we go with Hometown Bank for our lease this year.
I'll make a motion to move the resolution to approve Hometown Bank for the lease purchase agreements for technology purchases for the district.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
He's just
Still going, I think. Yeah.
I know, it just was a lot to say.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thankful for our banking partners.
Yeah.
Who show up for us and help us out at every opportunity.
It's also very, I think, appropriate to give all 3 institutions equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
I feel like they all take turns. Do they take turns?
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm sure it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Discussion. We will proceed to vote. This is a resolution, so we need to go around the table. Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Dewey?
Aye.
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 Ms. Martins? The ayes have it. Resolution has been approved. Thank you, Megan. Item number 7, consider approval of new change order process for Mend the Middle project.
At your last meeting in May, the discussion centered on amending the change order process authorization. Previously, you had authorized the superintendent of schools to sign change orders under $50,000. Anything over $50,000 required school board approval. In discussion with you, the business committee, ICS, our general contractor, we moved to recommend a 3-tiered plan. The first tier would be for $50,000 and under. The superintendent of schools can sign the authorization for change orders. Between $50,000 and $100,000, the superintendent of schools with consult and authorization from the school board chair and school board treasurer can approve the change orders. And any change orders over $100,000 need to be brought forward to the school board for approval. I would recommend your acceptance or approval of the 3-tier change order process.
Yeah, I move the motion. I think it'll be a smoother process for everyone and allow us to be as nimble as reasonably possible.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, consider approval of culturally responsive TDE rubric. Dr. Graff. Come on now.
All right, thanks for having me. As you are aware, a 2023 change in state statute required us to go back and review our teaching evaluation rubric because it now needs to incorporate components of culture responsive pedagogy. We have completed those updates throughout this school year. Those updates have been approved by SPEA, and the final step per statute is approval from this body. So I would like to walk through the steps that we took to get where we're at, provide a brief overview of the final product, and then recommend your acceptance. So in your board packet, you have the rubric, and the first page of that rubric talks about kind of the steps that we took. Everybody able to find that? Okay. So step 1, because all teaching rubrics need to be based off of the standards of effective practice, step 1 was to review this document. This document's put out by the licensing board. Step 2 the guidance was to go through the standards of effective practice and choose some domains that we felt were most pertinent to our goals. So we as a school district decided to go with domain 2. Domain 2 is the learning environment. So we chose to focus on just that inclusive environment within the classroom. And really what that encompasses is the physical space and the atmosphere that our teachers and students create within that space. Step 3 was to develop some look-fors for each of the components within the standard. So we did that activity as a admin team. We did that activity as a an equity advisory council, and then we also did that activity with our building leadership teams. So what we did is we went through the various bullet points within this domain, and we tried to spell out what that actually looks like in the classroom. We looked for commonalities, and then we incorporated those commonalities into our existing Danielson framework. So the following pages are the finished product. And the finished product is kind of a mixture of the existing Danielson framework with some additional language and 2 new components. So if you're okay with it, we'll walk through each of those pages relatively quickly. So the existing Danielson framework, which is used by, do I dare say, most districts as their teacher evaluation rubric, includes 4 domains. The first domain is planning and preparation. The second domain is instruction. The second domain is classroom environment. The third domain is instruction, and the fourth domain is professionalism. So on page 2 of the document in front of you, you will see the existing rubric with no changes. So this is the beginning of domain 1. St. Peter Public Schools chooses to use these components. The first component is demonstrating knowledge of content and pedagogy. You will see in each column the various levels of proficiency from unsatisfactory all the way up to distinguished. Each column has a statement describing what that proficiency level looks like, and then critical attributes, which we would call look-fors. So as an administrator going into a teacher's classroom, what does it actually look like? And you can see how those progress from unsatisfactory to distinguished. If we move to page 3, this is the second component of domain 2. You'll see there are no changes here. Page 4 has additional language. This is the beginning of domain 2, which is the classroom environment. That additional language comes in as you would expect because we're doing learning environments for our focus. And the highlighted areas are the additional language. And that additional language comes from those look-fors that were developed by those teams that we just talked about. So you can see how those look-fors progress throughout the proficiency levels. In this particular page, it's really about how teachers are responding to students. So we can start with unsatisfactory, just as an example. The teacher is not consistently welcoming or may show visible frustration with students. And you can see how that progresses. The teacher is generally welcoming, but may be inconsistent in tone or approach. That's the basic level. Proficient, the teacher greets students warmly and consistently builds a welcoming environment. All the way up to distinguished, the teacher creates a consistently inclusive and affirming atmosphere where all students feel welcome and seen. Questions about the new language in that component? Okay. If we move to the next page, this is page 5. There's additional language here. And this is really about routines and expectations. Our goal is for those routines and expectations to be posted, referred to, and have student collaboration when making them. We want students to have a say in what our classroom environment is like, and this is where that pops into this rubric. If we move to page 6, this is where we add new components to the classroom environment domain. We felt that these look-fors were different enough that they needed their own component. And you can see how those progress. So on page 6, this is really about that welcome and inclusive classroom community. It's about the stuff on the walls. Does it represent our students? It's also about students' opportunity to shape the norms within that classroom once again. And then finally, if we move to page 7, this is also a new component within Domain 2. This is that idea of respect and responsiveness to differing perspectives. We know that culturally responsive teaching includes gaining perspective from students and having students take ownership in their own perspective and being comfortable sharing that. We know that collaboration involves constant sharing of ideas, and we want to build that inclusive environment where students are comfortable to do that. And you can see how that language progresses from unsatisfactory to distinguished. And then when we get to Domain 3 and 4, there is no additional language. So once again, state statute requires that if districts adopt their own rubric, it needs to be a joint agreement between the teachers union and the school board. The teachers union has put their stamp of approval on this and the process, and now I would recommend that you do the same. Any questions for me?
Dr. Graff, I would like to go back and managing student behavior language. And we're talking about expectations with student input. Can you maybe describe, I gotta believe kindergartners don't have the same amount of input as seniors, or?
So through our PBIS is our behavior management philosophy. And in PBIS, what we try to do is we try to proactively teach expectations. And kids are part of that process through the whole thing. So in a kindergarten level, what does kindness look like? How do I show that I'm a good friend or I'm a good neighbor? All the way up through a senior in high school, what's acceptable in this classroom? What should we be doing with our cell phones when we walk in the class? How should I respond when I disagree with you, the teacher, or my classmate? So that input in a culturally responsive classroom is constantly being solicited. And in these rubrics, the idea then, and it aligns with PBIS, is that those expectations are posted. So at SPMS, those expectations are pride, preparedness, respect, integrity, determination, empathy. Kids help us define what that looks like at the beginning of every school year. We already know the answer, but we're soliciting and driving students to come to that agreement as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I have a better understanding now.
Yeah. Without that, you get that feeling of this isn't my space. It's the adults telling me what to do. When you come to that agreement together, you're a little more bought in to the process, especially at the middle school level. Any other questions?
I don't know if this is a question so much as one of the conversations we had, because we hear about culturally responsive, and I figure sometimes it almost can be like a trigger point for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so something we talked about during one of the meetings, and it was kind of a different way for me to think about it. I was wondering if you could share that. We had talked about it's more than just culture or race or things like that. And the example was given about if you walk into a classroom, maybe Dr. Olson gave it, was talking about where there's just a lot of like sports, and, and so kind of talk about that. And not that those things are bad, but you just want to be able to feel like you belong in that classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit? I mean, and kind of how it is more than just race or, that?
Yeah, we want, just to back up a little bit, we want every single student to feel heard, welcome, like they belong. And part of getting there is to see themselves in the building. So if I only see myself in pictures of athletes in the classroom and I'm not an athlete, I might feel like this isn't for me. If I'm in a wheelchair and I don't have any books about kids in wheelchairs or the main characters in a wheelchair, or I don't see that anywhere in the building, I might feel like this isn't for me. So it's how do we get everybody to feel that they're a part of the system, and that comes through representation.
And maybe everybody else thought that already, and I was just behind on it, but hearing that clicked something for me, so maybe somebody that's watching, maybe that'll help them be able to look at it differently and feel differently about it, because for me, it kind of helped me think about that differently.
And when you
and we
feel, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and we don't want like there to be like, we're not looking at blank walls and that, because that's not it. It's just, we do. If I walked into a room and it was full of something that I couldn't identify with, I don't know, I'm just such a fun person, I can identify with anything. But I'm trying, you know what I mean? Like, if everything was in Spanish, and I would feel like I don't really belong here, and so therefore, you know, so, I don't know, you know what I'm talking about, but thank you
For
for
sure.
sharing it like that.
For sure.
Thank you.
And the goal of that, obviously, is when you feel like you belong, you're more engaged.
Yes.
You're more invested, and when you're more invested, you learn more.
And we also had some discussions about the fact that this allows it to be a little more student-centered, where classroom decor has a lot of the time been a teacher introducing themselves, and it just kind of stays that way, but as the kids start to participate and contribute to the decor, then they have a chance to show themselves to other people.
And we do still want our teachers to feel like they
Oh,
matter too.
we're-
Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Start
don't
with
want,
that.
I don't want teachers to think that either,
No.
but
We're
there's
not
just,
saying they can't have a Green Bay Packer poster.
well, we are saying that actually. We are saying that they can't have that. That is absolutely what this is about. That's why we started this whole thing, was to get rid of the Green Bay, I'm just teasing.
Unsatisfactory, Green
Yes,
Bay.
exactly, that's in there.
Posters.
Just teasing.
Can I go back to the evaluation plan?
Mhm.
So there are 4 different domains in this. And at what point does someone get put on a improvement plan?
So there are 4 different cohorts that we run. So probationary teachers receive 3 formal observations every year for 3 years. Cohort 1 and 2, there's not a formal observation, but there's the walkthroughs, the informal bop-ins, and then the formal summative evaluation. And cohort 3, that's teachers who have been teaching for 3 years after continuing contract, they get a formal observation as well. And through that process, when teachers are in the basic or unsatisfactory categories, in that summative evaluation, that's when there would be a formal plan for improvement.
Okay.
If we're doing this right, the first walkthrough, the first formal observation, you and the teacher you, the administrator, and the teacher having those conversations. It's about coaching. It's about
Right.
support. Yep. And the rubric it gives us the language. It gives us the commonality to have those coaching conversations.
Well, I think the beauty of this whole plan is, you used to hear all the time, it was impossible to get rid of a tenured teacher.
Sure.
And this gives you the framework to identify areas needed for improvement,
Mm-hmm.
set up an improvement plan, and if progress is not made, that's justification by statute to terminate. So
Correct.
hopefully it's not too much work for all the principals to do everyone, but I think it's very important, and it should improve our instruction throughout the district.
Definitely. This is the most important part of our job.
And I think one of the advantages to the way this is, and it's so nicely written, it's not vague, it's very clear and very concise. And for those other than when you're doing the observations or you know one's coming up or something, this gives you, each teacher, it gives you a way to evaluate how you are doing yourselves and where you can, okay, yeah, I can pump this up just a little bit more. It's a nice, clear, concise way for teachers to go on their own progress path.
I would say, Bill, just in support of our response to your statement, and what Dr. Graff indicated, being an instructional leader is the most important job of a principal. But they have lots of other jobs. This process is a lot of work. I mean, it is a lot of work to go through with 4 cohorts and provide summative evaluations for everybody, but it is the most important work.
Mr. Chair? Dr. Graff, I know enough about this to probably not even ask a very intelligent question, but I'm impressed. Obviously, a lot of work went into it. The language selection is well thought out. But I am confused to some extent on how the measurements are done. Much of the terminology is really subjective. And when the observations are being made, you said 3 times a year minimal for a probationary teacher. And is that always completed then by the principal of that, the supervising principal for that individual?
So our process, observation number 1 and observation number 3 are done by the respective building principal. Observation number 2 is done by other building principals. So let's say Darren and Annette might come to observe middle school probationary teachers. And the value of that is they come from a different perspective. So it's a well-rounded feedback.
Are they also then, is the teacher cognizant of the time and date of the observation?
There's a formal meeting after the observation where you review the whole rubric, talk about the strengths and areas of improvement.
But they also know when the observation is going to take
You
place,
bet.
Tuesday at 10 o'clock or whatever.
Yep.
So isn't that a bit of a heads up, which may modify behavior?
The reason we do that is because they have to submit a formal lesson plan. And they wouldn't have that formal lesson plan otherwise. The walkthroughs that we do regularly of teacher classrooms, those are the unannounced visits.
Sure.
Yep. So we get a well-rounded picture of a teacher's performance throughout the school year.
Okay. Do you also solicit feedback from coworkers, colleagues?
Through the PLC process, it's their own learning. We aren't soliciting feedback on a teacher's performance from others for the formal evaluation.
Which is probably really important for morale.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That could get icky.
You bet. Thank you.
You bet.
We had a chance to meet with Dr. Graff at a committee meeting and walked through all of this, and it was clear that it was a highly collaborative process to come to the additions of the look-fors and also the additional what do we call them? Components. 2 additional components. So it didn't just happen in a vacuum. It's a collaborative process, and we have our SPEA also in agreement with that, which I think speaks volumes. So because of that, I would also move that we approve the language here, sorry.
plan.
Yes, the plan set before us, the culturally responsive TED rubric updates. Thank you.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Graff. We appreciate your work on this.
No, that's exactly
Item number 9, consider approval of True North Consulting Partnership Contract. Ms. Prafke.
Good evening, everyone. Throughout the superintendent search process, there was discussion related to a transition plan and mentoring for superintendent's first year in the position. After consultation with Chair Potts and incoming superintendent John Graff, recommending the approval of a service provider agreement between St. Peter Public Schools and Jeff Olson, True North Consulting Partners, LCC. That agreement would be in effect July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. Some services to be provided would include consultation regarding St. Peter Middle School and MVED construction projects, strategic priorities and initiatives, consultation on an as-needed basis, which would include monthly meetings, in-person meetings, and additional meetings as needed, and 5 sessions of professional development regarding superintendency and leadership. My recommendation is to approve this agreement, but I would certainly take questions. And the service agreement is in your board book.
I will say we had multiple discussions about this. We are incredibly excited for Dr. Graff to take to take over as superintendent, but we also know we have a wealth of information and a trusted mentorship partnership between Dr. Graff and Dr. Olson, and felt like this was a really good way to help with the transition. And I think it's a very favorable agreement for the district for the services received from True North Consulting, and so I'm excited about what this could help during the transition incredibly.
I was very excited to see that agenda. Not because I don't trust our new superintendent. I just want to be clear about that. I mean, just excited because, there's a wealth of information there, and
The institutional history can't be
Exactly.
institutional knowledge can't be undersold. Like,
Mhm.
just having that and being able to make a quick call and get some more information, it just will be, I think it'll make for a really smooth transition.
Well, and that was one of the things that Dr. Graff had talked about, was wanting to know about
Exactly.
that. So
Mhm.
we were able to meet that need, and that's good.
So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the True North Consulting Partnership Contract.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right.
Thanks, Atif.
Thank you. Welcome back,
Dr. Olson.
Dr. Olson.
Yeah, welcome back.
I thought there was something about a penny 3 times.
Yeah.
You have to be out of school like 5 years to get that one,
Yeah.
to be in like the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He's never
Never
gonna be in
gonna
there.
get
He's
in.
never, ever gonna get in there.
Item number 10, consider approval of tenure action for probationary teachers.
Building principals have identified teachers that would qualify for tenure and are recommending that you recognize this tenure action. Just want to point out that Minnesota Statute 122A.40 identifies the first 3 consecutive years of a teacher's first teaching experience in Minnesota as a probationary period, and the probationary period in each district in which the teacher is thereafter employed shall be 1 year. So if they're successfully completing 3 years consecutively and then are moved into employment the following year, they have tenure. Or if they've previously had tenure, they have 1 year and then they earn tenure. So the list of teachers is included in your packet. If you have questions, you can address those at specific building principals. But they've done the thorough evaluation process, as was just explained. I would recommend that the school board recognize the tenure status of the teachers being presented by their building principals.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I was happy to see this particular list because there are some great teachers here. And I know that when there are threats of reductions and shifting, and that can be a stressful time for some of our newest teachers. And I know some of these people were affected by that, so it makes me just happy that it worked out to be a positive thing for a number of them.
last 3 years were stressful.
Yes, yeah, and we recognize that.
Do you want to read through?
Yeah, so just for the record.
Please.
Those teachers: Ethan Sindelier, Olivia Mickelson, Joey Brown, Alyssa Weller, Alexandra Fritz, Wesley Heiser, Jennifer Kaepernick, and Sherry Carlsrud. Any further discussion?
Just like to extend congratulations to all of them. Being granted tenure is certainly a significant milestone, and look forward to 35 years from now when they can all be congratulated for their retirement.
Well, I don't know if it'll be that long, though, Ken. Notice the ones that we hired in the agenda today, a lot of them are fairly experienced, so.
People are living longer.
We expect a lot.
I think the legislature just lowered the bar, though, as far as when they can get out.
All right, any further discussion? Discussion. We will proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations to those who achieved tenure. The last action item, consider policies for approval with a second reading.
You have 2 policies that are being presented for a second reading. They had a first reading in May. They were reviewed again by the policy committee at their June policy committee meeting. And they would recommend your approval of these policies with the second reading. The first is policy 412.1, expense reimbursement. It has been expense reimbursement for clothing, but now it adds clothing or personal property damage. So in the event that a teacher is carrying out her or his duties in the performance of regular responsibilities and there's damage to their clothing or personal property, there could be expense reimbursement from the district. That's been a kind of a question mark. Clearly clothing, but what happens if during the course of your duty somebody goes out and damages your car, for an example, and there's a deductible that doesn't get covered in your insurance? So it's those kinds of things. So that's that policy. We'll just stop there. Policy committee members, any clarifications or then questions from anybody else?
We just felt that was an appropriate addition to the language.
So do you want them to go through the second one as well, or you want to do them individually?
I'll move that we approve policy 412.1.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Policy 412.1 has been approved. Next up is policy 610.
610 field trips, again, that had a first reading in May. The May suggested language changes involve trying to make the policy more consistent in terms of the approval process. So the approval process for instructional trips and supplementary trips involves the principal and or in some cases activities director. For extended trips, it would involve the teacher advisor, principal, and superintendent. It also added that there would be a report to the school board on a biannual basis of field trips. And I think those were the primary changes. At that meeting, there was some discussion about overnight trips that are regular trips. So for an example, on a regular basis, teachers are taking students to the Concordia language villages, or on a regular basis, an annual basis, teachers are taking choir students to the All-State Choir Competition, and they may stay overnight, or to the Dorian Festival, and they may stay overnight. So the suggestion was under supplementary trips to add the statement that take place outside the regular school day or are an annual activity of a school organization or group, which would then qualify those to be approved by the building principal and or activities director. So those are the changes that occurred as of the policy committee meeting. And the policy committee recommended your approval of this policy. Questions? Thoughts?
I just have a concern with the fourth example of trips, and that is the non-school sponsored trip. Just simply because we list those four types, the classroom experience, the supplemental, the extended, and the non-school sponsored. And then we have the section about regulations, talking about the expectations of behavior and other items of students and employees will be followed in all field trips. And I don't know how we can insist upon that for an event that we do not sponsor. And so I just thought it's something that should be raised and determine if there's a concern or if I'm just being real nitpicky.
What would be an example of a non-school sponsored trip?
A teacher working independently decides to be kind of interesting to take a group of students to Poets Corner in London, but that doesn't have anything to do with their assignment or their club or organization or group that activity that they are involved with. And so that wouldn't be a school-approved trip, or potentially. I don't know, Mrs. Engeldinger, do you have other?
Yeah, I think that's a good example. I just feel like anytime there's a nexus between school and they're held to certain expectations without it being
I guess
for the teacher's sake.
my point is that I don't see where they can't be held to those expectations, but I don't know that the school district can require that. I mean, if the individual teacher who's involved in this chaperoning, I would certainly encourage them to follow those guidelines and make that really clear. But since we don't have any responsibility or liability, I don't know how we can impose our stuff on them.
Your policy clearly states that for those trips, the school district will not assume any liability or responsibility for the participants. One of the potential, so I think you've got a couple of options. One option would be to just add a statement to the title, Roman numeral 3, regulations, and add to that govern all school-sponsored trips. Regulations that govern all school-sponsored trips. So therefore, all of the regulations would apply. Alternatively, you could table the approval of the policy and send it back to the policy committee for more discussion. Whatever the pleasure of the board.
You had the teacher who was willing to take that on is crazy anyway, so why would they wanna do that?
They just can't get enough of their students.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with either way. I mean, we certainly can table it and take it back to the committee to discuss more and seek additional input.
I think that, I do get your point. We have, the policy disavows any liability. I think one of the things that we're not, the fact that this is a classroom teacher or a teacher who is accompanying these students and the contractual obligation of a teacher for, care and whatever of the students and stuff, that kind of flies into this too. So those are sort of a regulation as well. I mean, it could be researched a little bit more, to see if there's any wisdom in the statutes beyond that. But I'm comfortable with this because it's the teacher organizing this, and it would be a teacher, understands that the rules and regulations of the St. Peter School District should apply to those students wherever they are. And I don't know, maybe we need to talk about it a little bit more.
I'm kind of with Bill. I'm thinking it might be confusing for, I don't know if our teachers would they necessarily know that? Yeah, I don't know. Not that they're gonna let the kids go rampant or anything, but.
Right. So for instance, this just popped into my head again.
I love things that just pop in your head, Bill, and then you just say them. It's very exciting.
Let's assume our varsity baseball coach is coaching the American Legion team. And the American Legion team qualifies for the national tournament. And so they're going out of state overnight, but it certainly is not a school event. Does this policy even apply to that?
My gut feeling on that one is that does not apply because that coach is working for the the baseball
Right.
association, not for the school.
But they're not working for the school in the other one.
Well,
They're not working.
Example.
it's a good example.
That's no different than the teacher who would take to Poets Corner in London, if it's not a school sanctioned event.
They're like coaches doing their summer coaching and,
That's a really good question. If you're not employed as the coach during the summer, because you're not, even though you're working with students,
Yep.
and you organize a trip to
7-on-7 camp.
7-on-7 camp or basketball camp in the University of Minnesota Duluth, do school regulations apply? So
And do they?
So actually, given those kinds of things that you're asking, I would say we should table this.
We're tabling it.
I think so too.
And we do so with a motion.
I move that we,
table for further discussion, the field trip policy.
Because I know the high school.
Do you have to second a
Yeah.
table?
Right.
I don't know. If we do, I second the table. If
Yes,
have
we
to
do.
that.
Second the motion.
Okay, I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Jeff, just to follow up to your comment a second ago relative to summer activities for coaches that are not covered by insurance. For example, football scrimmages that are off-site somewhere. That's part of the coaching contract here, I would guess, is it not?
Summer coaching, I believe, would not be part of the coaching contract.
Right.
But generally, those activities, I think, are through maybe even community education, I'm not sure. So then they would follow under our liability.
But once the State High School League sanctions the start of the football practice,
Then-
practices are held, scrimmages can be held wherever.
Yes,
That's what's my concern.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we just opened up a can of worms, is what I think. So, welcome.
good
wel-
questions.
Welcome, Dr. Graff.
Discussion on this.
Yes, absolutely. Fishing forums.
So we do have a motion and a second to table.
Welcome, Dr. Graff.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll table it. Stay tuned. Dr. Graff, this is on you now.
I know,
Yeah.
Next policy meeting. Let's do it.
Just for clarification, my intent with the motion to table was, actually was to defer action to the next meeting, to our next meeting here. So 30 days.
Oh,
from now.
okay.
The table, you mean, if I understand Robert's rules correctly, table means to defer,
To defer
but
action
no,
until.
no specified date to return to make a decision.
Okay.
Deferring action to a specified date, then you're required to bring it back up again at that time. And that was my intent, with that
Okay.
motion to bring it up again at our next board meeting.
Pending discussion of the policy.
Pending
You would
discussion,
Right.
meet
yeah.
Before the next
Exactly.
meeting, yeah.
And you would meet prior to the next.
Which
regular
we will meet
school
before prior to the next meeting.
meeting. Was that the understanding that you had?
Yeah.
That was my assumption.
Yep.
Okay.
The next one.
All right, information items. School board election filing dates.
So, there's a very strict timeline to follow when you have a school board election. You have a school board election for 3 members to be held on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. I believe it's before July 10th, we have to post a notice of filing for the general election at the principal bulletin board in the district office. So we have to now make very clear that we have a new principal bulletin board in the district office with Kimberly at the high school. We also have to publish the dates for filing, and those dates for filing begin Tuesday, July 29th, 2025 at 8 a.m. and shall close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. So we want to be clear that in order to file, you have to come to the school district, business district office, which is now located at the high school. We also will publish this notice of filing for general elections twice in our newspaper of record, which is the St. Peter Herald, and those will both be published in the Herald prior to July 10th. So information is out there. Note the location for affidavits of candidacy. The cost is $2. So someone who's interested has $2. Come on up, pile away, and make sure you recognize that the location is in the high school. And we'll have to, we do have signage, but we'll have to make sure we have very clear signage available there for that.
So does that mean the district office has to be open till 5 those days?
Yes, yes. And early in my career, I learned that.
All right, thank you. Next up, first reading of revisions to the policy manual.
You have in front of you policy 417, chemical use and abuse. We started to review the policy and matched it up against MSBA model policy. We discovered that had been legislative revisions to the model policy prior to this year that it didn't fit with our review of the policy back in 2022. So there are quite a few changes, and those are legislative changes to review. So I would request that you look through those carefully, and if you have any questions, bring those to the policy committee prior to the July policy committee meeting. But there are some things in here that require some programs and services for staff that were not in place before. So working with Dr. Graff and the committee, they'll be looking at those very carefully. Comments?
There's more red than black on this, so please read through it carefully.
Reports are up next. Building principals.
All right, well, summer has been off to a good start and hopping. Just to give a little bit of a report, on Monday of this week, we started our early childhood special education summer school or housed at South for this summer during the construction. And we have about 28 preschoolers coming to our program there, and that's Monday through Thursday, 8 until 11. That's been going well. Busing went smoothly, so we're excited about that. Then the Read and Feed has been going strong since June 4th, and that's being housed at North Elementary. Breakfast, we've been averaging about 60 kids a day. Lunch, we've been averaging about 220 a day. So we certainly are seeing the need, and kids are coming on bikes and families are coming, so we're really excited about that. We'll be starting our targeted services summer school, our STARS Academy, on July 7th. Those students will be coming also to North Elementary, kindergarten through 8th grade. They'll be taking part in the Read and Feed program as well, so we'll see those numbers jump. Again, we'll have the 200 coming, and then probably about 100 more for that program. Some of those might be duplicates, but we'll provide a report later on that. So again, that targeted services program will start July 7th, 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, 4 weeks. And we're getting those final details in place, like transportation and finalizing registrations and that type of thing. And when Mr. Doherty reports, he'll give a little report on our meeting that we held today, getting organized for that. Just a little one.
Greetings from North Elementary, AKA the hub of summer activity going on. It's been great. Stage 1 of transition is complete. We have the middle school office, including Dr. Graff, secretary, EC, central enrollment is all right there within about 20 feet of each other in the office. And it's great. It's going really well. Stage 2, ET mentioned, is getting everybody set up for summer school programming. Kindergarten through 8th grade is all going to be in the building for Monday through Thursdays, pretty much the whole month of July. So ET did a great job leading about 40 staff members in an online meeting today. There are quite a few logistics to go through, especially since the cafeteria is completely full at Read and Feed time for lunch. Breakfast, there's a little room, but there are about 120 other students that we're going to have to get through lunch and breakfast for summer school days, which includes bringing over some cafeteria tables from South. I think we have about 8 more tables coming over, and we'll get creative on where to find that. And our teachers are great figuring out the logistics of the transitions and getting all the homerooms of kindergarten through 8th grade kind of through those spaces. So I'm sure we'll make some adjustments after the first couple days. But
we're really fortunate that we have a lot of returning teachers and coming back to do that program year after year. And so it's kind of a finely oiled machine now, but
yeah,
it's always good to touch base and make sure we are on the same page.
They are. Yep. All the forms and plans are other than, just being everybody in the same space this summer. That's about the only adjustments we have to make. And there are even still 2 homerooms still open, unassigned. So plenty of space at North. So if you'd like to, couple more teacher openings if you want to find something to do in July. So. Yeah, that's right. And all kidding aside, I, as a program at North, it's so nice to have South over there because it helps with that transition, and Read and Feed helps with the transition. When we did those tours for first graders coming in as second graders in the spring, every single hand was up when I asked them, like, who's been to North? So everybody's been at North. So it's really that seamless integration K4 experience. All right, hustling along here. I'm happy to share North Elementary successfully got our School of Excellence application turned in by the end of the school year. We'll find out before the beginning of the school year if we receive the accreditation or the acknowledgement. Thank you, Dr. Potts and Dr. Olson, for reading the 72-plus page report. My leadership team, the North leadership team, did a great job on that. So we'll be keeping you informed on next steps on that. So. Also, and finally, I want to recognize Mrs. Meixner. Stella Meixner put in her letter for retirement, snuck it in there right after the end of the school year, after 31 years of being EL teacher. When I started, Stella was I believe the only EL teacher in the district. And so she bounced between all 3 buildings. Obviously, that program has expanded, but she will be missed. She will be some tough shoes to fill. Just a quick example, like we had a PD day and I asked Stella to go through some strategies for students that are new to country as far as like, how do you teach? How do you break down those communication barriers? So she had 30 teachers in the media center at North. She taught us, she had a worksheet for us all in Mandarin. She spoke in Mandarin the whole time, and she was successful to get all 30 teachers who nobody spoke Mandarin to successfully complete that worksheet using just like actions, pictures, gestures, so very, very talented teacher. She will be missed after 31 years of leading that program. So thank you, Mrs. Meixner.
As you all know, there's like a flow to summer. Summer's a little slower, but there's like the to-do list. And this year, my to-do list is the same, but in a different spot, and kind of two to-do lists. So it's been exciting and excited for the next step, and I'm excited to get away from Doherty. But in that flow, the hiring process is well underway. We're super lucky at the middle school. We have all positions filled except for an ELA position, which is open due to a recent transfer. And then we're looking for an ADSIS position, a behavior interventionist. Our master's schedule is complete. Michelle Dozie's actually stationed at the high school, working through individual student schedules, and those will be. She couldn't handle it. Those should be completed by the beginning of August. Also, preparing or doing my best to prepare for Jessica Butel, who will be taking over July 1st. I've been fortunate enough to have her at a couple of admin meetings already. She's going to be an outstanding addition to the team. Annette, myself, Michael
Johnson.
STEM teacher. Your STEM teacher.
Schweigert, Mr. Schweigert.
Ms. Schwaggart, all attended the MEP conference today in Owatonna. The focus this year was AI. I left feeling enlightened, but slightly overwhelmed. There's just a lot out there. My takeaway was slow down. AI is a tool to enhance instruction, not replace instruction. So I'm excited for the work that we'll be doing for the rest, or into next year with that. And then lastly, I just want to provide a brief mend the middle update. Seth, please help me if I mess this up. But demolition is underway, scheduled to be complete by the end of the week, which is pretty amazing, the speed that they are going. Footings for the chiller are poured, and the kind of the slope of where that chiller is going next to the pool. It's been, like, there's the straw, I think they're growing grass there? Yeah, straw mat. So that's moving right along. And lastly, the new stairwell, which will go in that area where like the dumpsters are, kind of back there. They've poured the foundation for that, so you can start to see the footprint of where that new stairwell will go. So moving right along, super exciting process. Was at Owatonna High School today, and our middle school is going to look just as nice. So very excited.
Better.
Very excited.
That's going to require more than school board.
I still don't think that place holds a candle to St. Peter High School, truth be told. It's a beautiful building, but I love the feel of St. Peter High School. I am also reporting for Mrs. Sikora, who had to leave for a baseball game. South kindergarten registration is at 120 kids right now, which is slightly ahead of where we were at this point last year. And at the Oshawa Learning Academy, 2 out of 3 teachers are hired, as well as a secretary replacement, so that's excellent news. And they have summer school going through June 22nd. As for the high school, number one, I'm just relieved to be out at the high school and not at the hub. If you know what I'm talking about. I thought it... Also, thank you. We had every single one of our school board members was in attendance at graduation, and that really says a lot about your commitment to our kids and their journey through school. So, thank you for being there. It's one of my favorite days of the year, and so it means a lot that you guys are there. We had great spring sports success. We sent over 20 track athletes to state, which is the most in a very long time. And we sent yet another doubles team to state. So congratulations to all of those athletes. We had a fun meeting yesterday out at the press box at the at Frank, which will be hopefully the Frank Fredland press box. We'll have to go through some naming rights and all that kind of stuff. But as you know, Frank Fredland's estate donated a very generous $67,000. And so as a team, we tried to think about what would be the most meaningful for Frank and his years dedicated to our football program. So we went to check out the press box, and it does indeed need some updating. I said it looks like a kid's clubhouse when you walk in there. Plywood floors and some windows that need updating, so we're looking forward to getting to work on that. Other exciting news, we were awarded, I don't think I said this last time, we were awarded a grant through the from Minnesota Housing for $99,999 through our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. The majority of that money will go toward building materials, but $20,000 of that will go to our building trades class for updated tools and equipment for doing the build. So thank you to Habitat and to Scott Robinson, that teacher, for helping to write that grant with us. And we've had summer school going for 2 weeks now, so 31 kids are making up credits this month at the high school.
I do want to, Dr. Graff mentioned our ADSES grant, and so you may recall in March, we kind of last minute decided to throw our application in. We worked hard as a team and submitted that, and we were awarded that grant, which will allow us 3, I'm going to get the title wrong, behavior intervention assistants, and 1 reading intervention assistant. So we're really excited about that and those positions that are posted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Olson.
3 things. One, I wanted to just share that, remember we talked about a comprehensive communication plan as a part of our strategic priorities. A number of things have occurred in that, but one that is kind of exciting, it's a takeoff on something that's happened before, but we're in the process of developing a brochure that highlights all of the sites and programs in the district and includes information about registration easily with a QR code for somebody that's interested in joining our student body, families that are interested in touring the district. So Dr. Graff will be working on finalizing this with Tammy Skinner and Kurt Hildebrand in the next couple of weeks. The idea being this is going to go all over the community. Chamber of Commerce, places where people are waiting, maybe dentist's office, doctor's office, other places that we can think about. Just get this all over the place. Hall of Fame, recognition ceremony, have these about and around, and hopefully help to market and recruit students. Secondly, Rock Bend. Rock Bend is an ever-evolving story in terms of the location. We've talked about the community center. We've talked about the new city hall. Just based on a variety of different factors, we're probably back to the community center as a long-range solution. But more information will come. Dr. Graff and Mrs. Engeldinger will be kind of touring that facility and seeing if and how it can be renovated to meet the needs of our students in the most effective manner possible. But it's looking like that is probably the best possibility at this point in time. It's a positive in many, many ways. If you think about the community center that we're in right now, you've got access to a gymnasium, you've got access to a library, you've got access to a school office in the community education office in terms of supplies and copy machines and all of those kinds of things. You've got access to fields and a ball field at this area. So I think there are a lot of positives there, but more to come on that. And then finally, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you and serve the community and the school board and the staff and students of the district. It's been a great experience. My wife and I were driving home from a meeting with retired superintendents last night, and I said, you know, I told those guys that it was enjoyable, and they said, what? I said, yeah, it was an enjoyable experience, so thank you for that.
Board members around the table. Mr. Russ.
Just three very, very quick things. The first one, just to reflect back to Jeff, thank you for your wonderful service over the last, how many days?
2.5 left.
Well, enjoy them, okay? And then July 4th, you're available 24/7?
Maybe July 6th.
Okay. Secondly, as Mrs. Engeldinger just mentioned, congratulations to all the athletes, parents, coaches. Phenomenal spring sports season. That's wonderful. And then lastly, also Mrs. Engeldinger, congratulations on filling out the 30 class or student cohort group. That's wonderful. Is it still possible for me to get in, or am I too late? Well, there's a threshold. Yeah. Well, that's great though. Congratulations. Seriously, if anybody else does want to join, is there a possibility for that later in the year?
There is a possibility, but it would be very hard to complete all of those. Over the summer they could,
Right.
if they meet the minimum requirements. But starting late, it would be very difficult.
Yeah, I just was
catch
thinking the
up.
first couple days of school, if
Yeah.
they decided they would like to, right? Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also was just gonna thank Dr. Olson. I always appreciate working with you, and you've always just been a really good mentor to, just as we're learning, I still feel like I'm learning how to be a board member, so I just really appreciate that. I wanted to always thank the teachers that are writing these grants that get us this money, that they seek that out and do that. That's wonderful, and thanks for that. And hats off to the students that take part of their summer to earn those credits to graduate, because it's really hard, I would imagine, to come back after everybody else has taken off. So good job to those students. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I would just echo, I mean, this is an exciting time, right? We have a big transition coming, immense gratitude for you coming back and now going away for a third time. But really excited about what we have. The next time we'll be together to meet as a board, we'll have a new superintendent here. So just excited about. Often it doesn't always feel easy to have a transition, but I feel good about this transition. So in large part to the work you've both done. So thanks.
I have a couple of things. I'd like to echo the comments about the students, and we did have a couple individual champions, right? Track team. Yeah. So that was awfully nice, and it's kind of nice to see the tennis guys win their first match. That's always makes the trip worthwhile. Get a win. I mean, you can really feel good about that. So, I would like to sponsor a resolution to the MSBA Delegate Assembly concerning what we talked about last year as far as urging the legislature to pass into statute funding for school readiness programs and pre-kindergarten programs. And so I'd like the board's permission to go ahead, work on the language a little bit, talk with our lobbyists at MSBA, and work with ETIV to update our stats from, we should have a couple of years now that we can use as rationale for trying to get an increase in our revenue. without really increasing our expenditures because they're already there. So if the board would give me the go-ahead on that. And then the next thing we have to do, negotiations committee, we have set some dates. So if we could meet just real briefly after this to set up some dates. Dr. Olson mentioned that the custodial group has contacted us. They wanted to meet tomorrow, but we told them it was a holiday, so.
Might be, Bill, it might be just as simple as to work through Kimberly to set the dates, because everybody maybe doesn't have their calendar in front of them right now. But yeah, just Kimberly could work. When would you kind of identify that? Early after the 4th, shortly after the 4th sometime, or?
Well, that's why we could just meet for a couple seconds to get some parameters, and then, because I think our committee needs to meet, first of all, to start preparing for all our collective bargaining agreements. Have we been notified by anyone other than the custodians that they want to negotiate?
Not officially. Food service has reached out, and they'll be sending us something shortly.
Okay. The other guys missed the timeline, so they're just staying status quo.
We did have a verbal from our teachers.
Yeah.
And paraprofessionals also have reached out,
Okay.
but just nothing formal.
So as you can see, our summer's gonna be quite busy too. So.
Welcome, Dr. Graff.
And Ed, I'll apologize in advance, trying not to flag you down as you walk up the street to ask you a question. So I've been spoiled, so I'll have to get Dr. Graff on speed dial.
Find out where he lives. You just walk by his house.
No, he walks by mine. He walks much more than I do. So. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Olson, for your years of service and helping us out when we really were in need. And I know that we all feel more comfortable where we are right now compared to where we have been in the past. And I know that we all feel comfortable moving forward, and that's a gift. So thank you.
I too thank you and congratulations, and we're looking forward to this. And I think the fact that the two of you doctors have got such a good collaborative relationship, it just adds to the overall collaborative, I'm using that word too much, but that's what it is, of this district, the staff and the students and everybody. This has been a good season, and you're not gone.
All right, I think we covered almost everything from committees. Are there any other items from any committee that they want to share here before we?
I just want to
Wrap.
throw in about the policy committee that we have lots of things that are going to be yet TBD'd on the legislative and the MSBA language suggestions and stuff, so we're going to be busy as well.
Yeah, if you're interested in any of that legislative stuff, you can go on their website. They've got some pretty good documents.
Yeah. We are still awaiting what we would call the runs. So typically by this time we would be getting a very clear run of what all of the legislative changes mean specifically for our district. And Megan, to our knowledge, we haven't seen that yet, right? So hopefully that's coming soon.
Mr. Chair, does Seth have anything you'd like to add relative to the middle school?
Seth, do you have anything you'd like to add to about the middle school? Any updates or anything?
No, still holding on time and on budget.
Oh, I
Love
like
it.
that. On time and on budget.
Like it. All right. We do have some upcoming meetings, all of the committees in July. Business, Policy, and Education, all meeting before the next regular school board meeting, which is Wednesday, July 16th. Same time, same place. Cannot wait. All right. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned.